We're live. How you guys doing? A few more housekeeping items here. What is going on a Thirsty Thursday? Thirsty Thursday. Tracy James, hear ya. Yep, I always do. It's a big story. A lot of coverage of this. I am a small potato in this. I'm not too worried. All right. Sure, I've got my stuff lined up here. Thank you all for joining. Much appreciated. All right. I'm going to go another few seconds here and let the live stream catch up a little bit. There's always that delay between me talking, it getting out there, going to a satellite, coming back down, going to your computer. That's how it goes. Okay. Louder. See over here. Okay, here we go. All right, Tristan, here is our intro. Two, three. Yep. Okay. Cartels are recruiting Army soldiers and now Texas National Guard for human smuggling. We've got 2 cases within the last 10 days or so. What's going on? Let's get into it. Here we go. All righty. You don't like Tim Pool? I know a lot of people don't. I like the topics he covers. Okay. What we're going to do is we've got a good video here. Let's do this. This is News Nation. Let's watch a little video. Hold on. I've got to get rid of my email. All right, here we go.
Friend or a colleague promising you quick, easy money.
I'm going to go back just a little bit here.
Correspondent Allie Bradley is live in El Paso,
Allie
Texas,
Bradley.
after speaking exclusively to the former U.S.
Camo.
service member about how he was recruited. Hey, Allie.
Yeah, hey, Elizabeth. So these individuals are being recruited for this life-changing mission. No, it's not a military recruiter at a community event or a mall. It's a friend or a colleague promising you quick, easy money, and just like that, life changes.
Telling me that he made like a quick, 4 or 5 grand in a weekend.
23-year-old Branden Broadhead says he joined the military to help pay for school after struggling with his studies during COVID.
I was like, I've always heard that the, military, the Army will pay for your tuition. So I enlisted.
He says he had good intentions when he took an oath to protect and serve, inspired in part by his grandma.
She always told me growing up that, join, she always told me, join, whatever, but join something.
But then a friend connected him with a low-level cartel member who promised him $5,000 in cash if he smuggled migrants who had crossed the southern border into Texas. He says his mom was sick and unable to work, so he said yes. Broadhead headed down to Eagle Pass from Austin, where he picked up 2 migrants from Mexico, a female and a male who said they were cousins. He made it up to rural Kinney County, but was surprised by a pop-up tactical border patrol checkpoint. He turned around, which alerted law enforcement.
I'm realizing, like, I have a really good life, and I'm kind of throwing it away. I have a really great life and blessed life, and I'm kind of made a huge mistake.
Anybody could be lured into this. I mean, they're talking big money, plus they're away from home, plus God only knows what their bills are. They're being lured into this on the promise of big money.
It's a similar story to the other Army soldier arrested at the same pop-up checkpoint. Texas Guard soldier Savion Johnson tried to outrun law enforcement before his vehicle was spiked and stopped, and he was pulled from that vehicle and arrested.
295-10-4, subject in custody.
I think it's more widespread than anybody wants to believe. I mean, we've had law enforcement get involved in biker gangs, on the side. They end up getting ratted out. And now we've got the military involved in some of this stuff. It's just a matter of time before we catch somebody else.
Mind your back.
Now, Elizabeth, we did hear from the Army Reserve. They say that they are aware of this arrest. They are monitoring the situation. But of course, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Now, I want to add here that Branden told me that he was okay sharing his story and okay talking with us here, Elizabeth, because he hopes that his story will prevent other young people from getting involved with these criminal organizations.
Yeah, let's hope so, Allie. It's a very chilling thing to hear that sheriff say it's more widespread than anybody actually knows. Allie Bradley reporting live from El Paso, Texas. Yeah.
Thank you, Allie, and other reporter there. The main reason I wanted to cover this topic was because we're going to watch another video, by the way, was because after that first, the National Guard kid, and these are all kids in their 20s, right? These kids, they're not making a ton of money. They're in the Army, they're in the National Guard, whatever their circumstances are, 4K, 5K, whatever it might be, that could be a life changer for those kids. So the lure of easy money, I mean, I think there's a whole lot more of this going on than we know about. But when 2 incidents like that happen, just kind of back to back, that's when you're like, okay, here's the bottom line. Nobody is immune from the lure of easy money. And the cartels are just, hey, it's a quick weekend trip. You just drive that roadway and away you go. Now, what I would say at this point is on my first trip down to Eagle Pass, I remember I was driving, it's like 10:30 at night. I'm coming into Eagle Pass, and I remember I'm heading south, and in the northbound lane, there was what appeared to be a checkpoint, almost like a way station for big rigs. Now, it wasn't that, but I've been driving for a couple hours and I just flew in from Seattle and I'm just, kind of dazed because big open skies, all that freedom in Texas that I don't have in Seattle. I remember driving thinking, what in the F is that all about over there in that lane? And there was a bunch of, military guys wandering around, police looking ish, and they were stopping cars. I'm like, okay, is this a fruit fly station? We've got checkpoints like that here in Washington. Okay, don't take the fruit flies from one county to the next. You got that kind of thing, right? And then on my way out, multiple days later, I'm talking with my dad on the phone. I'm like, I'm coming up on Checkpoint Charlie here, and I gotta concentrate for a second. And then I pull up, I'm in line, not a very long line, a handful of cars. It's the middle of the day. I'm driving back to the San Antonio airport. And National Guard walks over on my side and says, no, passenger side. So I had to roll down the window. I had to figure out I'm in a rental car, roll down the window. And he looked in and he said, what are you doing? Where are you going? I'm going to the airport in San Antonio. He looks at me and goes, okay, have a good day. And I was on my way. Now, this wasn't a pop-up. That had been there for a while. So they've got these checkpoints. And this was maybe, I want to say 10 miles north of Eagle Pass. So they've got these bad boys set up to exactly catch what these kids are doing. And so, had these kids known, hey, there are checkpoints and they're all going into northbound lanes because nobody's going southbound with the illegals, right? So one of these kids that got busted, he was caught turning around. And then that is, you do a U-E on a 2-lane major highway, because they're all kind of 2-lane most of the way. You do a U-E and you book it out of there. Yeah, they got something going on, right? So that's how they busted one of them. Let's take a look at the next video here. Let me get this up. That's not what I wanted. Let's do order report. Where's my story? Let's go back. Here we go. Texas National Guard member charged with human smuggling. Just crazy. Here we go. Let's watch this one. Gosh darn it. Sorry, folks.
For attempting to transport an illegal immigrant.
Cam video trying to evade authorities, accused of trying to smuggle migrants into the U.S. Correspondent Allie Bradley joins us live. So, Allie, I'm curious, how was he caught?
Yeah, so multiple agencies responded to this incident here, Kelly, where this Texas State Guard soldier who was deployed from the McAllen area down to Eagle Pass under Governor Abbott's Operation Lone Star, he was busted on Sunday for attempting to transport an illegal immigrant further into the interior. So here's a look at that dash and body cam video that we were able to exclusively obtain here at News Nation of this incident, which happened on Highway 674 in Kinney County. That's a very hot spot for human smuggling, according to the sheriff. Now, this soldier reportedly approached a pop-up tactical checkpoint that was only operational for about 2 or 3 days. So he did not know that checkpoint was there. He turned around to avoid the search, and that's when a pursuit began. DPS picked up that pursuit, spiked the vehicle, eventually bringing it to a stop. Kinney County Sheriff's deputies arrived to assist with that arrest. You saw them pull that individual out of the vehicle to conduct, obviously, a search on him and also on the government vehicle he was driving. Sources tell me he didn't have access to the license plate reader system or any other technology that would have aided him in his efforts out there. He's now facing multiple felonies, including human smuggling and evading arrest. And he was actually also armed, so that escalated the level of his infraction here. Take a listen to what the sheriff had to say.
Well, I'm sure that there's some that are being recruited. I'm sure that there's some that are just sitting back and watching, thinking that they know more than anybody else. I know how to get around this situation. If I smuggle 1 or 2, nobody's going to know. Maybe he's done it once or twice before. And then in this particular case, there was that checkpoint that was thrown up that he didn't expect, and he panicked. Who knows?
Now, Kelly, what we know here is sources say that he was offered between $5,000 and $6,000 to move this individual. That individual bailed from the vehicle, tried to abscond. Eventually, though, he gave himself up to authorities and was transported by Border Patrol. Kelly.
Wow. Is this a common occurrence, Allie? People who are supposed to be helping actually contributing to the problem?
Yeah, I wish we could say this never happens, right? But unfortunately, it does. Less than a year ago, on the exact same road that this happened, which is likely why they popped up this tactical checkpoint, because, as I mentioned, it is a hot spot for human smuggling. So take a look here at these 2 individuals. These 2 women, also National Guard soldiers, were arrested in June for human smuggling as well. Now, while they were down there, one of them was from San Antonio, the other from Louisiana. They were not there on a border mission at the time of their arrest. Now, Kelly, of course, I've reached out to Texas DPS, who is currently investigating this situation with the soldier on Sunday. I've also reached out to Governor Greg Abbott's office, of course, because this gentleman was deployed under Operation Lone Star. But, Kelly, I have not heard back from either of those entities.
All right. Well, with those comments, Allie Bradley, thank you.
Who's this guy? Who's that guy wandering through the background there, right? Who was that guy? Ah, the Texas border. Just all kinds of ridiculousness going on, isn't there? All right, let's get a setup here. Yep. Give me 1 second here. Okay. So it was a pop-up. It was a pop-up checkpoint, and Kinney County is to the north of the Eagle Pass area. So, 3-day-old pop-up. These guys don't know it's there, and that's the reason they're all of a sudden just boom, it's there. The checkpoint Charlie that I went through, it was pretty established. Like it had like a little single wide mobile home, something like that on it. Not to say that you can't just put one of those up, but it sounds like what this kid ran into, what these kids ran into, the Army and then the National Guard individuals was more of a super temporary, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to, okay, they don't know we're here, boom, and grab these guys. Let's read this article. Let's get into it. Branden Broadhead, 23, says that he joined the military to help pay for school after struggling with his studies during COVID. I was like, I've always heard the military, the Army will pay for your tuition, so I enlisted. He said he had good intentions. We heard him talk about that. He took an oath to protect and serve, inspired by his grandma. She always told me growing up to join, he said. And he got involved with a low-level cartel member. So my whole point to this is that the cartel has they have infiltrated just about everywhere. If you can get into the United States Army, if you can, crack that, I mean, who else is involved with this? Yeah, I mean, it's probably way more extensive than 2 women a year ago and a National Guard and an Army member. Because that's who they caught, right? That's who they caught. So what about the gotaways? Talk about the gotaways being the people who, the illegals who make it across the river and then get into the interior of the United States, and we just don't even know what those numbers are. Those are the numbers that are probably, takes out 11 million who are in the country right now, and who knows how many more are in the country based on that. So the low-level cartel members, they promised him $5,000 in cash if he smuggled migrants who would cross the southern border into Texas. Says his mom was sick. You don't want to make excuses for somebody. People make choices. And unfortunately, the choices that these kids made are going to impact the rest of their lives, because they're probably going to get, they're going to have a dishonorable discharge, I would imagine. I'm not sure what today's standards are in the military. I know it's wildly different than it was even maybe 20 years ago. But I don't think a military judge is going to say, it's okay, I'll let her go. You guys just need to really think about your commitment to keeping the border protected here. But if you think about it, what they did is basically exactly what Customs and Border Protection does, just gets people on their way. But in this case, they're doing more of a direct, they're doing it themselves, and they're taking that risk, and they're not on official, they're not driving an official United States government vehicle paid for by us, by the taxpayers, getting paid $5,000 by the cartel, get somebody in. Dangerous, dangerous. These 2 kids' lives and the 2 women that we saw before, their lives, they're wrecked, right? They're wrecked. Broadhead headed to Eagle Pass from Austin, where he picked up 2 migrants from Mexico, a woman and a man who said they were cousins. He made it to rural Kinney County, but was surprised by a pop-up tactical border patrol checkpoint. He turned around. Oh, yeah. Instead of trying to get through that checkpoint. Now, he's probably thinking, man, I should have just tried to go through and see what happened. It was probably so obvious, though, right? White kid, 2 illegals in the back seat, whatever it might have been. Hey, can I see your papers? Knowingly. Okay, gonna have to have you step out of the car. I'm realizing I had a great life, Broadhead said. Huge mistake. Yes, huge mistake. One of those life changers. If you've had children, if you've had kids that have made, terrible decisions, it's so painful as a parent to be sitting back going, oh my word, my kid chose to do that. Okay, not good, not good. If you've ever been called in the middle of the night by Officer Friendly or friendlies, you know how that goes. And it's just not a lot of fun. And you hope that whatever your kid is involved with, it's nothing major and you can work it out and they can make better paths in life, right? But unfortunately, when you're in the military and you are involved in human smuggling, that is not going to end well, is it? I mean, the talk of big money, plus they're away from home, plus the government knows what their bills are, Co said. They're being lured into this because of the promise of big money. Simple as that. That's what you got going on. Simple as that. It's cash talks. It's a similar story to that of the Texas National Guard. That's the main story that we kind of looked at. Savion Johnson tried to outrun law enforcement before his vehicle was spiked and stopped, and he was pulled from the vehicle and arrested. Officials say cartels recruiting military members to help smuggle migrants is an alarming trend that likely won't stop anytime soon. Why would it? Why would it? The cartels are making enormous profits off of, not only human smuggling drugs into the United States. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on, right? Human trafficking, sex trafficking, you name it, and it's going on. And while there's money involved, I mean, there's no cartel out there that's going to go, you know what? We've made a lot of good money here. I think, I think we're going to do profit taking. And stocks run up for a long enough time, or the markets run up for a long enough time. There's a big sell-off. Everybody talks about, oh, we had some profit taking in the market today. Market moved downward. Well, no cartel is going to say, you know what, we've made a lot of money and we're just going to back off. No, that's not going to happen. I think it's more widespread than anybody wants to believe, Co said. I mean, we've had law enforcement getting involved with biker gangs on the side. I mean, money is money. If somebody is, hard up for cash, okay, risk return. Yeah, my future, 6K. All right, here's what we're going to do. And when you're young and you think you're invincible, all I got to do is drive a car on the highway, right? That's all I got to do. They end up getting ratted out, and now we've got the military involved in some of this stuff. It's just a matter of time before we get somebody else. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when the military is involved or law enforcement is involved, kind of goes to show that nobody is immune from the almighty dollar. It's just, it's got to make good decisions, but not everybody's going to be able to do that. And these two kids here, they are hosed. Co says that authorities will follow up with him to see if he will provide information on the coordinators and the bigger fish in the whole scheme. He's going to rat them out. Is he going to rat them out? Yeah, I have to see what kind of deal he can cut, right? I'll follow up with this. If there is a follow-up, oftentimes the stories with the Army or National Guard, it's, kind of mum is the word, because this whole news story is not a good look for the U.S. military or Texas National Guard. But what I would say in favor of all of the National Guard and Army that's out there, and Texas Department of Military, you got like 5 or 6 different military entities in Texas right now on Operation Lone Star. And of all the thousands and thousands and thousands of Army members and National Guard and the other entities, you've only had a couple of busted. Well, that indicates to me the vast, vast majority of, those in the military, they're doing their jobs. They want to secure the border. And, you get a couple of bad apples. I don't think it's much more than that, but I think it's probably more widespread than, a couple of stories. And the fact that Texas National Guard has set up these pop-ups, they know it's going on. So this story will be continued. And this stuff has been going on. This is not just, oh my gosh, this is happening during the time of Operation Lone Star, which Greg Abbott put in place in, was it 2021 or 2022? I want to say 2021, but I'm not totally sure on that. But this kind of stuff has been going on. But now you're starting to see, a few more news stories because everybody's focused on the border. It's a big, huge story. Just the whole way that this deal has gone down. Now you've got all the folks, basically shifting. The numbers are shifting wildly to the Tucson sector in Arizona and also the San Diego sector in California, because Texas is they're pushing traffic to the west with tactics like this. And the more news stories that get out on the cartel is going to go, all right, how do we avoid this? Because this is cutting into our profit taking. So what do we do? You shift to where they're not, protecting the border, which is California, which is Arizona, which is New Mexico. And so that's literally what we've got going on. Some of the numbers on the number of Chinese nationals are, we could double last year's number this year in 2024 versus 2023. We could double or maybe even triple, probably not triple based on current numbers, but we could. We're in April, so we are, a third of the way through the year, right? Maybe it's triple. You've just got a ton of Chinese nationals flying into Quito and taking a flight from Quito in Ecuador to Tijuana, and then getting a $400 ride to about an hour east of San Diego, where the border wall kind of stops. And that's where all the activity is going on. I did a podcast yesterday. I don't know if you've seen this, but the cartel is, beaching boats right on the beach, in Carlsbad, I think it was the story yesterday. And then also in La Jolla. Could you imagine the residents of La Jolla, very expensive community in San Diego, very expensive, beachside community. And some cartel boat just comes bombing into the shore and beaches it. The engine's just dragging, the outboard engine is kind of up and it's dragging through the sand. And then like 15 illegals pop up and run out, and they know where they're going, and they're going to go to a public street area, and they're going to hop in cars, and away they go. So, that whole 2 if by land, 1 by sea, whatever that was. I don't even remember really what that was. I just remember learning that in school. But my point is by land, by sea, by air, they're coming in a million different ways. And then you've got the One app by Customs and Border Protection. All right, if you plug your information in here and you basically set up a time to come to the border, we'll, bring you in. And if you've got a sponsor in the country and if you figured out a way to get here, we'll take you in. So, the federals are just bringing people in left and right. So it's, not even just the cartels doing this, bombing people in on the shores, but also roadways. And these 2 kids here, their lives are hosed. And and that's terrible. But you also can't have people bringing illegals in from the cartel getting paid. That's a hard no-go too as well, right? All right, that's it for me on this segment. I will catch up with you on the next one. And then Tristan will do an outro. Actually cut that last part and just, we'll just float right into the outro. We'll do that at the end. People on live stream, how are we doing? Yeah, what Customs and Border Protection? Yeah, you don't need a sponsor anymore. Is that true? I hadn't heard that one. Biden loving Californians deserve all the problems that these illegal aliens are giving them. 100% agreed. 100% agreed. I mean, now with all these people infiltrating into San Diego, how's that going to go, right? How's that going to go? Because San Diego has they've shut down their missions, although I saw that they're going to get, what was it? I don't know, 4 or 5 million specifically from some last bill that's going to go to San Diego. Because San Diego just basically run out of money, their missions where, okay, Customs and Border Protection takes them there, and then the mission, moves them by bus, by whatever, to their destination, wherever that may be. All right, let's get the next story teed up here. We've got a good one. Wonder about Greg Abbott straddling the fence as far as human trafficking, or if he could, I think he would immediately turn them back over, to Mexican authorities. But that doesn't seem to be going all that well. So he's kind of taken that federal approach, which is, all right, got to ship them somewhere. But yeah, it is human trafficking. If you are taking illegals in that aren't vetted, whole thing is just so messed up. It's just, yeah. Scorch, thanks for being there. All right, here we go. Topic number 2. Unhoused residents built a home on the southern side of a California freeway. You got to check out this home. This home is, I thought the one that we had built here on the on-ramp of Mercer here in Seattle, I thought that one was significant. No, we've got a way better one. Let's get into it. Here we go.
Now at 10:30, living on the edge, a man builds a makeshift home in between the 110 freeway and the Arroyo.
That is not makeshift. That's not makeshift. That is a stone fence with a handrail. You've got wood siding. You've got vinyl framed windows. Only thing you don't, I'd say the Seattle house beats this one from the standpoint of the Seattle house, and I'll show you that one as well. The Seattle house had a composition roof. This one, it's just got a tarp. So,
Seco in Highland Park. That home has electricity, a garden, even a front door, all put together using items that other people have discarded.
So what do neighbors think about the home located not far from their own homes? KTLA's John Fenolio joins us live from Highland Park with a closer look. John?
Cher and Sandra, good evening to you. The encampments along the Arroyo Seco, which runs right next to the 110 freeway, have swelled in recent years. And as you're about to see, some people have gotten very creative when it comes to building a suitable shelter.
Creative.
Riverfront property may be hard to come by in Los Angeles, but for some people living on the margins, this is where they call home. There are many makeshift structures built with scrap material and trash along the Arroyo Seco next to the 110 freeway near Highland Park. They are among the more than 46,000 people experiencing homelessness in LA. Some of the structures, like this one, stand out. It has a stone wall, walkway, front door, powered lights, even a hammock for relaxing. It appears well kept. The people living here did
relaxing from your busy day at work. Oh, wait a minute. You're not working. You're living off the grid on the side of a freeway, jacking power from the city.
Not want to speak on camera. They don't bother me, this resident tells us, echoing neighbors who say most of the people living along the Arroyo Seco are quiet and keep to themselves.
And some of these structures are pretty illustrious.
They are, and just admiring the work that they're doing out here, and I get, violently attacked by these guys.
But clearly not everyone agrees that this waterfront living is okay.
What do you want the city to do?
Clean this mess up. This does not belong here. This is public property, but that's not what it's supposed to be used for. Yeah. This is dangerous. As you can see down there, someone's cooking with an open fire out there. They're stealing electricity. I mean, come on.
You feel bad for those folks?
Yes and no, because, it sucks to say I know some of these people are here, for some reasons that they put themselves here. So, I do wish better for those people, but I cannot be sorry for those mistakes that they made.
Others say just getting by in the City of Angels is becoming too difficult.
It's messed up. I mean, they should lower rent. They should start.
They should lower rent. Okay. Who should? The city? Well, the city doesn't own all the rental homes. So there's this notion out there that rent should be lowered. Rent should just be lowered. Well, it's got a little thing called the free market. And rents aren't going down. Rents are only going up because you've constricted the supply so hard. So, there's that.
They're lowering all kinds of stuff, especially here in LA.
All right, we did reach out to LA City Council member Eunice Hernandez for reaction to these folks living here along the Arroyo Seco, but we have not heard back. We're live in Highland Park. I'm John Fenolio, sending it back to you in Hollywood.
So we'll go back and we'll take a look at that. But this was the home in Seattle, and it was a pretty substantial home. It's got, same deal. It's got wood siding. It's got the framed in. It's got the roof. It's got all that good stuff. But the bottom line is when people say, you know what, these people just don't, they're not really bothering anybody. And first time I met Jeremy Harris from Como, reporter, he was showing me a picture on his phone of this home in Seattle. This was, I don't know, was this a year ago? Something like that. Looks like it was March 31st, 2023. So he had this home that this couple built. They were a bunch of psychopaths. I mean, they were whacked out of their mind on drugs. And Jeremy showed me a drone video, photo from a drone video of the body the woman was strangled and left in South Lake Union encampment for days, like 4 days, report says. So Jeremy had flown a drone over, and there's a body probably 15 feet to the north and east of the structure here in Seattle. So when people say, you know what, they're mostly quiet and they don't really bother anybody, you're like, no, I'm going to say hard no-go on that one. But these structures that are built on major freeways, on-ramps, they are done on purpose because they're always in a jurisdiction where nobody really knows, who's going to take care of it. And these people that build these structures, they know darn well that, okay, it's, Department of Transportation, or it's the state, or this is a federal roadway. And other than the city and the state, most of these entities, they don't have homeless, encampment clearing. They don't have the personnel to do that. So there's all of this. Well, you should be taking care of it. You should be taking care of it. And that's why these structures are allowed to be built and stand, because they're kind of in like a no man's land as far as being cleared. And this is what you get. Now, the homeless encampment in Seattle, that got cleared, but it had a major fire. You had a shooting, you had a rape, you had a woman's body being dumped there. But, these encampments, they're just, they're mainly safe. They just keep to themselves, except for the occasional rape and, the occasional murder. And, too busy to dig a hole and put the body in the hole. So I'm just going to, wrap it up in a blue tarp and just set it on the side. Somebody will figure it out. Somebody will find it. Yeah, that is the hardcore reality. So this structure is interesting. And I know there's bigger and there's greater structures out there, especially in California. But on a freeway, this is a significant structure for a freeway. You can't deny that. All right, let's keep going here. Among the 46,000 people in Los Angeles, you know what? I need to change this up. So if you guys want to see the whole thing, you can. Let's go. There we go. How about that? That better? Among the 46,000 people in Los Angeles experiencing homelessness, there are dozens living along the Arroyo Seco next to the 110 freeway near Highland Park. Those living there have constructed a number of different makeshift structures. Those are not makeshift structures. If you have siding on your home and if you have a permanent window, that is more than a makeshift structure. But California has just allowed their homelessness issue to just spiral out of control. I was watching a video on, and you start watching a bunch of videos on Instagram. They just feed you. They just load you up with the main line of it. Here's content that you'll enjoy. I was watching a video of Oakland in the early 90s. And you might think, oh God, that must have been just a crime fest. No, you were watching kids playing in the streets, doing a bunch of stuff, and the whole point was, it wasn't loaded up with homelessness lining the streets. Did you have some crazy crime? Absolutely. Absolutely. That was back when the Bloods and the Crips were just running all around, right? You had, kind of that kind of influence, and you've still got them running around. But my point is that the look of Oakland was so wildly different because now you've got areas that are just miles long of, broken down RVs, tents, and just everything that goes with that. So we've got those living here have constructed a number of different makeshift structures, some with tents, tarps, and other scrap materials. But at least one of the structures, complete with a stone wall, a walkway, a front door, electric-powered lighting, and even a hammock for relaxing. I think the hammock and the lighting, that annoys me the most. You need a job, or you need treatment. You want housing? Treatment is housing. Huh. Yeah, interesting. Well, anyway. It's not what we're doing in LA, right? The people living in the seemingly well-lit structure did not want to speak to KTLA. Shocking. Are you shocked at that? And as might be expected, those living near the riverfront domicile. Now, that is storm water runoff, isn't it? It's kind of like, do you remember in, The Terminator? They were trying to escape. In the very first one, they were trying to escape from the Terminator, and they were driving in that big, huge, it's, I don't know how many lanes wide, but it's a massive carrier of storm runoff. That's what we're looking at there. So the fact that you've got storm runoff in your backyard and then your front yard is the freeway, how are officials allowing that to just be? And the answer is there are so many of these situations going on, just like in Seattle, just like in Portland, that they prioritize the worst ones. And so if you don't have a lot of just issues going on, if you are truly kind of keeping to yourself and keeping your head down low, you can live for a long time. You can live in a structure that is far more than temporary. Yeah, it's a makeshift structure. Yeah, with a roof. So those living near the riverfront domicile have differing opinions on the encampment. One woman who lives nearby said, they're quiet and they keep to themselves until they murder somebody. Neighbor Mike Anchetta does not feel the same, though he admitted to some of the handiwork on the structures is impressive. Yes, but it's illegal. So the fact that it's impressive is just that much more worse that it shouldn't be there. But you've got governmental entities that just, homelessness, it's a big issue and we can only take care of so much. Plus, in Los Angeles and in Portland and Seattle and San Francisco and all these liberal-run cities, super tolerant of this. They're not doing anything wrong. They're fine. And that was the big story in Seattle of the homeless structure I showed you, is that literally they had shootings, rape, murder, fires, massive fires that were seen from buildings, in downtown Seattle. Another homeless encampment, fire just poof, going up in smoke. So then, of course, this guy, he was just saying, I was admiring, this is the guy on the bike. I was just admiring the work they've done. Then, of course, you get violently attacked by these guys. Yeah. Who wants to live next to that? Who wants to live by that? Nobody. As far as he's concerned, unless you're a drug addict, then you've got close access to the drugs, right? As far as he's concerned, the city needs to clear the encampment. This doesn't belong here. This is public property. Anchetta said, it's also a horrific look for a city. Graffiti is one thing. Having these encampments on your major arterials going into a city, it's just a terrible, terrible look. And you need to just clean that stuff up. Clean that stuff up. But this is not what it's supposed to be used for. This is dangerous. As you can see, someone is cooking out there, an open fire. They are stealing electricity. Come on, man. So bad. Neighbor Enrique Rodriguez agrees with the sentiment, but says he has empathy for those struggling. There's a lot of people struggling. They don't necessarily build a permanent structure on a freeway. And this whole concept of, I should drop the rent. Well, who should drop the rent? LA's expensive. LA's expensive. Seattle's expensive. San Francisco is expensive. Just because they're expensive doesn't mean that folks, can just build a structure willy-nilly and with all the shenanigans that, goes along with that accompanies that. That doesn't, just because things are, all right. So where can you afford to have housing? What city can you afford to have housing? in. I never hear that. All right, I got to figure something else out. I got to go somewhere else because, you know, I can afford housing there. The homeless folks in Seattle, they're in Seattle. They're in Portland. They're in San Francisco for a reason. And oftentimes it's a life of crime, life of drugs. You can get away with it. And in LA, Skid Row is an entire area that's been dedicated to basically containing people of the drug life, of the prostitution life, stolen goods life, all of that. Now, let's just keep them in one neighborhood. We'll just, you know, nickname it Skid Row. It sucks that some of those people are here, he said. I do wish better for those people. I cannot be sorry for the mistakes they've made. These people have made choices. They've made life choices that have put them where they are. And the city is basically just allowing them to continue these poor life choices and basically affirm this is okay. Hey, build your waterfront, you know, bungalow overlooking the freeway. Yeah, you just got that hum in the background. Yeah. It's messed up, he said. They should lower rent. They should lower rent. They should lower all kinds of stuff, especially in LA. Well, how about taking some personal responsibility and going to a location where you can make enough money to afford rent? What about that? Oh, no, we can't do that, Sean. No. Personal responsibility, we gave that up in 2010. We're not dealing with that anymore. So it's a matter of personal responsibility, isn't it? All right, you can't afford LA? LA is ridiculously expensive. California, I mean, it's the highest state income tax in the United States, right? So make good choices. KTLA reached out to the office of council member Eunice Hernandez, who represents the area, about the encampment. That's still awaiting a response. Going to wait for a long time, right? Going to wait for a long, long time before that happens. So the whole concept is, you know, if you're okay with this, if you're okay whizzing by homeless encampments on the freeway, keep voting blue. Keep voting, vote for your Democrat leadership, because they're the ones that aren't drilling down on basically trying to contain some of this stuff. They've allowed it to happen. You know, before everybody realized, okay, the vast majority of these encampments are, you know, run on drugs. They're run on stolen goods, buying and selling of stolen goods. You've got this whole other subculture going on, and political leadership has just allowed it to happen. The fact that LA is expensive, okay, most of the cities where you've got massive homelessness, take West Coast here, West Coast, best coast, right? I know I always say that because it's so just not true in so many ways. Physical beauty, yes. You've got the mountains, you've got the ocean. Then you got a lot of stuff in between there that's just out of control. But take Vancouver, BC to the north. Come on down to Seattle. Go on down to Portland. Go on down to San Francisco. Those are some super expensive cities. So to say, I should just bring rent down, I mean, not going to happen. That's not how this works. So go where you can to work and be able to afford whatever lifestyle it is that affords you a roof over your head. But the vast majority of folks that are coming to, you know, do the drugs in these West Coast cities, they're going there because of that lifestyle. They know they can get away with it. Most of these communities have decriminalized drugs, and now they're back in the process of, you know what, we've reimagined and we've rethought about all these shenanigans, and maybe legalizing drugs isn't the best thing to have done. You know, hindsight is 2020. So a lot of these communities, Seattle, you know, almost immediately, legalizing, not good. And they went back to more of a tougher stance on drugs. But by then, the damage has already been done. Portland's in the process now of, or I should say Oregon, Measure 110, just an absolute train wreck. You know, ODs just exploded, just went crazy. And now, you know, you've got the governor and you've got mayors going, maybe that wasn't the greatest of concepts ever. We tried it. We gave it a good run. And then leadership is, you know, looking at their constituents, and their constituents are, you got to do something. But the constituents are the ones who voted in leadership and then also voted overwhelmingly. I think it was 56% voted yes for Measure 110 in Oregon, which basically decriminalized hard drugs and made it so that cities like Portland just become a drug mecca, a mecca for people who want to drop out, live on the side of the freeway, and build homes. Now, the other component of this is, could you imagine if a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen started to build one of these structures on their residential lot? Do you know how quickly, the permit building department, whatever entity it might be in your community, how quickly they would be out there to, number one, red tag the structure, meaning I don't see a permit on the books for this, or fine them, or basically state, hey, you need to come in and let's run a permit by us, and we'll get you caught up here. Because that's oftentimes what they do. They red tag it, and then if you come in, all right, here's my plans, here's my money. But how do these structures, just because they're homeless, I mean, they're just, grifting off of society. They're total grifters. And you can't feel sorry for them because you're in LA. You knew what the deal was. It's not that hard to figure out what rent looks like. So that's not an excuse. So many people want to say, but they started off in LA. They shouldn't have to leave their home. What I see in Seattle and what I've seen in Portland is vast majority of the people who are living in these encampments, who are building these kind of structures, they are not locals. So it's not like they grew up and then the area just became unaffordable. These areas have become unaffordable for just about everybody. Seattle especially. I mean, your median housing is somewhere around $800,000. Millennials are just being absolutely priced out of the marketplace, especially when you've got interest rates that right now are north of 7%. Way north. It's super expensive. But that doesn't mean you drop out and start doing a whole bunch of drugs, steal from your local, store and just grift off society. You got to figure out where you need to go, what you need to do. And that's called personal responsibility. But again, we gave that up long ago, whenever that might have been. So, this is not an uncommon occurrence, is bottom line in Los Angeles, in San Francisco. But this was just a big enough structure where I think the media is like, yeah, look at that one. That's a good one. You got power going on. It's not unlike Steve Irwin. He's our excavator man. He's our Seattle mining man in a city park. He is our logging man in a city park. He just got arrested for the third time, and he is currently still in jail, I believe, because we are so permissive of this idea of, you know what? Yeah, next time he'll do better. He's tried building a structure, and he built one that was pretty significant 3 times in a Seattle city park. And because Seattle's got so many of, these types of issues going on, and LA is way worse. LA's homeless numbers are, I don't remember what the actual numbers are, but I remember looking at it and going, holy smokes, that makes Seattle and Portland look like child's play. Population in LA, greater LA area is way, way greater than, darn near anywhere. But its homelessness issue and California's homelessness issue in general is just so substantial that you're not going to shut these things down ever, overnight. And there's no political will to make this go away, to actually start looking at some of the root causes, which are, you're going to have to get a whole bunch of crazy people into mental facilities where they can get, their heads squared away, if that's ever going to happen. Then you got the whole drug component. I mean, that's what most of this works off of, is drugs, right? Anybody who tells you different is like, really? I mean, you've got some of these communities where people are living, a step beyond these kind of structures in their RVs that actually run. You've got some areas like that where I think folks aren't necessarily, everything doesn't revolve around drugs, but I believe those are 1 out of 100. Because most encampments, and most of the encampments I've seen, I've walked through, I've talked to people in, it's all drugs. Let's be honest, it's drugs. And we're such a permissive society that we just say, those poor folks, if only they could get ahead, if only we could give them more housing, they'd just be right on their way back to, integrating back into society. Most of them do not want to integrate back into society. That's why they don't want to talk to reporters. Simple as that. All right, that's it for me on this one. And then Tristan, throw in that outro. Let's see what you guys are talking about over here. Sanctuary state problem. Absolutely. 100%. The spotlight in Portland really, the spotlight on Portland started in 2019 from a national standpoint. And then the Summer of Love just really put it on there. But Portland's been going downhill for a long time. Seattle, the same. Same thing. It's been happening for a while. I went to school in Seattle. I went to the University of Washington. I lived in the U District, and it's always been sketchy. Seattle's always had just kind of that toleration of just what I call nonsense, shenanigans, right? It's okay. That's your fellow human being. You know, it's instead of that, all right, we're going to go on this law-abiding thing. They don't do that. They're just like, do what you want to do. You want to do some drugs? That's fine. Seattle has always been sketchy. It's like Portland. Keep Portland weird. It's always been sketchy. But it's gotten way more tolerant of all this absolute ridiculousness. And I shouldn't complain, but I do for the people of Seattle because they voted this way. And then they're like, how did we get here? And you're like, well, just keep voting blue. It'll work out, I'm sure. It'll be fine. But I shouldn't complain because it just gives me story after story after story. Ridiculous stories, shenanigans left and right. Almost everywhere, Missoula, Montana is not gone unaffected. Almost everywhere has kind of been impacted, hasn't it? It really has, even down in Oklahoma City, because you've got these different notions of, hey, they're homeless. What's going on? They don't teach personal responsibility anymore. Samantha, that's so true. In so many, communities that you just don't have that. And then you wonder why the kids are just running around wreaking havoc. I mean, it's nuts, right? Wanted to live in Oregon like 10 years ago. Looks like a very beautiful state. Oregon is beautiful. Washington is beautiful. Coast of California, absolutely stunning. Big Sur, geographically, physically, absolutely amazing. But then you got to deal in the big cities. You've got to deal with just this horrific level of what are we doing here? How did we get here? What's going on, right? So that's kind of the big breakdown. And it's typically in the big cities. You go into Eastern Oregon, you go into Eastern Washington, with the exception of a couple of cities, Spokane in Eastern Washington, bigger city, and it's got some real crime. With the exception of a few of those, for the vast majority of it, it's a lot of big acreage parcels, small communities, and you're going to see a bunch of Trump signs. It's wildly different. And it, has to do with people take personal responsibility. Because if something bad happens on your ranch, on your acreage, on your community, you may not have police, Johnny on the spot, call them up and be there in a couple of minutes. You got to be able to take care of your own. So that creates a wildly different notion than, protesting against the police. And then when a car hits you on the freeway, because you're protesting on the freeway, you dial up 911, come right now. It's an actual incident that we had in Seattle, right? Just Looney Tunes, absolutely crazy. All right, I'm going to transition into our next topic here. And I think I can go like that. And here we go. Thanks for joining, people. Much appreciated. Yeah, talking about kids, people ask me, Sean, why don't you leave? Well, got one kid. I'm hoping for grandkids. I've got businesses here. You get set up in a community and you're like, all right, you got to weigh those differences, right? Do I want to just leave my entire family and go to Florida? I mean, I do, but then, the harsh reality is, okay, Real estate is a location business, and I got 2 of those. So I'm probably not going anywhere anytime too soon. Well, let's not chat about that. Let's go with, here's our next one. Make blocking traffic a federal crime. Ooh, hey now. What about that? Got all these protesters, and they always go to the big highways, right? And recently, they went to the roadways leading up to the airports, federal airports. So let's make blocking traffic a federal crime. I like the idea of that. Do you? If you do, let's get into it. Here we go. So what we've had happen is last Monday, we had protests all over, didn't we? That was that April 15th. Yeah, we had protests all over. Show you one from Seattle. I think Seattle had some of the craziest protests because we've got the craziest protesters here. We've got professional protesters here. All right. Let's this is a really good story from Jeremy Harris here. Let's get this one going. He's following up on the arrests. 46 protesters charged for shutting down road to SeaTac Airport. Now, SeaTac Airport, a lot of airports have frontage roads, so you could get off the main road, get onto a frontage road, and make your way back door to the airport. Not Seattle. We've got just one freeway system. You can't get on and off of it. You have to go through the airport and work your way back around. So the protesters know that if you protest, a mile or 2 out from the airport, because I don't know, is it 4 or 5 miles of roadway into the airport? It's something like that. Maybe it's 3 miles, not sure. But they're very effective. Let's look at some of what that looked like. Gosh darn it. Sorry. Let's do this drill again.
Get the car.
I'll get this at some point.
Well, it is now, but it was really quite the sight as this entire departure lane was totally empty because of the protesters who blocked the access road. Today, we made an effort to speak to those involved, and we got to look at the criminal charges that some of those protesters now face. They came to get the cars, and we came to get answers. This inconvenienced thousands of people. They'd like some answers about why you guys blocked the road. And while the people who were picking up these cars used in the airport shutdown protest wouldn't talk to us, the protesters who were arrested and charged for Monday's demonstration will have to answer in court.
Keep this image in your head. We're going to talk about this individual right here, all right?
Court.
The 2 charges that they'll be failing is disorderly conduct and failure to disperse.
Today, City of SeaTac prosecutors filed misdemeanor charges against 46 people for Monday's protest.
Based on the information provided by Port Police, they were able to file these charges and have them all ready for today.
Airport officials tell us this 3-hour protest
Look at
disrupted
these
2
losers.
dozen flights, including
Losers.
2 international trips where flight crews were stuck in the traffic backup.
There's a bunch of them that.
All right. So this is another image I want you to remember here. You've got 5 people, and they should have put this person right there. Because this one here, that's like 3 bills, right? That's 300 pounds. And that's a big individual. Cops are going to have a really hard time dragging that person, like what we're going to see down the road here in a little bit. And it looks like they've got painters' outfits on, and they threw some blood on themselves because it's all dramatic. And then what we've got going on here is the sleeping dragon. I have podcasted an entire podcast on what a sleeping dragon is. But what they do is that they basically handcuff themselves to each other, and then they put some type of pipe over the top of that, and then they'll wrap that pipe. And there's a number of different ways you can do it. But that's what you're seeing here, because it's really difficult to take 5 people, and get them off of the roadway or wherever they are. Or sometimes they'll, hook themselves to a building, all kinds of ridiculousness. But this is what our activists look like here.
That have been arrested already. and we basically had to get out and walk.
The protest was part of a coordinated day of action by pro-Palestine groups nationwide that disrupted airports and bridges in major cities.
My daughter is on the phone with us trying to figure out how to get to us. She has no clue, so yeah, we're all lost.
The protest led some travelers to get out of the car and walk to the terminal, including this guy who hobbled the quarter mile or so on his crutches to not miss a flight.
Can you imagine? You got like a sprained ankle or something, and these guy's flying out. He's like, oh my gosh, I am barely able to walk. I just limp along, and I got to catch a flight. And there's protesters on the freeway. Ugh, horrible.
The protesters linked arms in a device known as a sleeping dragon. Police escorted them to the side of the road where the device was undone.
Look at this numbnut.
And the airport reopened.
Can't see. Can't see.
Now, we're told from SeaTac court officials that all 46 should have a hearing sometime in the next 3 weeks to begin the process of facing those charges in court. Today, Governor Inslee sent out a statement. He said he felt like law enforcement handled this situation appropriately, and he said that protests that block infrastructure like the airport are unacceptable. Reporting live from SeaTac Airport, Jeremy Harris, Como News.
Those people, though, they're not going to do any jail time. You got Seattle. This is Seattle, right? This is Seattle. That's just nothing bad is going to happen. Here's what that looked like. This is when it first started. I mean, just shocking that this is going on. All right. And then we got the bike police roll up. They got 1 million bikes. And here you've got, I think this white vehicle gets towed off towards the end. And you've got the big van, and you got this, and then you got the people down in here that are in the sleeping dragon. I mean, and then all of a sudden you've got people that are getting out of their cars and going, F it, we're going to walk. Because this location here, you are still probably, I am guessing, are you 3/4 of a mile out from the departures? Probably something like that. Is it half a mile, 3/4 of a mile? Is it maybe a mile? It's a haul. It is not just around the corner. It's the whole thing is just, but this happened all across the United States. It was just an absolute debacle. Here you can see there's no cars and there's all these people. I mean, these people are like, what is going on here? This is absolutely ridiculous. It's so bad. It is so bad. Let's see what else we've got. All right, here, this is what Florida does. This is from Florida's Voice. We drag these people, pro-Palestine protesters, manually removed from Miami streets by police. So Miami is going down the roadway of, hey, this is how we take care of it. Okay, that's fine, but let's watch a little video here, and we're going to break it down just a little bit. We're going to break down how Florida has, their protesters are just inferior. That. Okay. All right. So tip number 1, you don't have any big human beings here. You can see these cops can just pick up these protesters. They're not, none of them are big. You saw that one that we saw. You get one person in your sleeping dragon line, you're not going anywhere because it's too hard to pick that individual up. You get 4 or 5 cops around, and then you got the other cops and the other 4 people. Tricky. But with these, they only hook themselves up in like 2s or 3s. You do 5 is far more effective, right? So Seattle protesters, different level. Portland, I don't think this happened in Portland. Probably all the Portland protesters are up in Seattle because they usually congregate. Just nuts, right? Those are small humans, not big. There's only 3 of them on that one. All right? See how they're just dragging? And those are 2. There's only 2 right there on this one. So that's pretty easy. And another, I think, 2 on this one. And again, small human beings, smaller. So Seattle's protesters are it's a different drill. I mean, the whole concept here is it's so wacky. It's so nutty. But that's what you got going on. Let's read this article from the Washington Examiner. It's pretty interesting. Let's go like this. All right. And can you read all that? I think you can. I'm going to move that for you just a little bit. Yeah, let's do that. Across the country Monday. I'm going to kill the audio here in case something auto plays. Across the country Monday, thousands of United States citizens were detained against their will by criminal protesters. In Seattle and Chicago, travelers were blocked from entering the airport. In New York City, the Brooklyn Bridge was shut down. In Philadelphia, all of city center came to a standstill. In San Francisco, commuters on the Golden Gate Bridge were trapped in their car for 5 hours. While across the bay in Oakland, traffic in both directions on I-880 was blocked for 6. This should be a federal offense. Give them 5 years, mandatory. Let's cut this nonsense down. You want to peacefully protest on the side of the street, do your flag thing, all that ridiculousness? That's fine. You impede traffic? No, especially on a federal roadway. 5 years minimum. Let's go. Here we go. Just no trial, no nothing. Just an automatic 5. Let them cool their jets, right? Let them cool their jets and think about how impeding people's lives like this car for 5 hours. That's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. None of these protests were legal. They didn't have permits? I am shocked. What? None of these protests were legal. While all citizens have a First Amendment right to express their opinions, they do not have any right whatsoever to impede the free movement of others. No. I mean, it's borderline kidnapping, isn't it? You're containing somebody in an area where they don't want to be. Yeah, interesting. Huh. All right. What's the federal charge for kidnapping? I don't know. But it can't be a short period, right? The Supreme Court has always held that the government may impose content neutral restrictions on the time, place, and manner of free expression, as long as the government can also show that there is a substantial government interest in the imposed restrictions. Getting people to the airport, that's important. And when you can't do that, people tend to get pissed. Ensuring their safe use of roads and bridges is absolutely a substantial government interest, which is why at every illegal protest mentioned above, dozens of protesters were arrested. Blocking traffic is already a crime in most local jurisdictions. But let's give it a little bit more and let's take it away from being a local charge and let's make it a federal charge. Yeah, interesting. Okay, I like it. Because, Summer of Love, we had how many protests on Interstate 5 in Seattle? Interstate 5 in Portland? I mean, it's absolutely mind-numbing that we allow this. And it isn't just absolutely shut down right off the bat and just do whatever it takes. Instead, we got to go through all this ridiculous protocol. If you're going to hook yourself up in a sleeping dragon, then it's kind of, your wrist gets broken. Sorry, that's a personal choice you made. Your arm gets broken. Your shoulder gets dislocated. Hey, sorry, but you were breaking the law. And, we've got people trying to get to the airport. One of the videos I saw, there was a pilot with his hat on and, he had his white shirt and his tie and he's dragging his luggage. I'm sure he's just like, you're never going to believe what happened in Seattle today. Try me, right? Try me. They had a protest. They had to get out and walk 2 miles. That one news reporter was literally like, we had to walk 2 miles to get to the scene because that's how far traffic got backed up. And it took hours to clear. I think it started at 7:30 and they had it cleared by 12:30. I think that's what Jeremy's report said. Unfortunately, it does not appear many of these jurisdictions are taking their duty to protect other people's right to travel seriously. Yeah, kinda, right? Kinda. Except for those protesters who were found with weapons, almost all the protesters arrested Monday were charged with misdemeanors and released from jail on the same day. Hence, federal charges. Considering how many of these jurisdictions have also far left district attorneys who are inclined to sympathize with the protesters' politics, most of these criminals will not be prosecuted. You're not going to be prosecuted in Seattle. And if you are, I mean, what are you going to get? You're going to get 6 months of probation. Test. Don't put yourself in a, sleeping dragon in the next 6 months. That's why this is not the first time we have seen roads around the nation shut down by far left protesters. They know they will not be punished for their crimes. Absolutely, 100%. You can play grab ass on the freeway in Seattle, and what'll happen? Yeah, as far as charges go, not much. Because the judges are like, oh, hey, you're protesting? You're pro-Palestinian? Oh, yeah, okay. All right, well, yeah, probation for you. State and local governments are mostly free to maintain law and order as they see fit. Well, that changes when federal money is used to build and maintain highways or involves critical interstate transportation infrastructure, such as an Interstate 5 or such as airports and bridges. Golden Gate Bridge being a good example. Hey, it's a federal violation. Mandatory 5. Go. Congress has every right to identify when localities are failing to maintain safe and free passage through federally funded infrastructure and then step in and restore order. It's like Trump saying, hey, we're going to send the feds into Portland because these same knuckleheads that are doing this is Antifa. It's that broad, these are Antifa people. This is Antifa. That is who is doing that. Guaranteed. They are professional agitators and protesters, and that's what they do. And they have good funding. Yeah. Congress should make the obstruction of traffic on all federally funded roads and all roads necessary for the use of interstate travel a federal felony. Couldn't agree more. Why not? Because if you're not blocking the roadways, you've got nothing to worry about, right? It's like, Then if George Soros funded district attorneys in Oakland or Manhattan refuse to do what is necessary, or Portland, refuse to do what is necessary to keep the roads open, federal law enforcement and the Department of Justice can assert jurisdiction to properly keep the peace. And that's what Trump was talking about doing the summer of love in Portland. Everybody got all worked up. Oh, he's sending the feds in? How come? And they're mostly peaceful. And it's night 125 of violent riots and trying to light the federal building on fire and breaking into the Apple store and just destroying statues, destroying public restrooms. I mean, nothing says peaceful than absolutely trying to light a federal building on fire. It's still mostly peaceful though, right? Ideally, local governments would have the political will to shut down illegal street protests before they impede the rights of other citizens to travel as they please. This can and did happen in Miami, where protesters attempting to shut down the port of Miami were met by police on horseback and in riot gear. Backed up by state troopers and armored vehicles, the protesters were quickly and effectively arrested before traffic could be disrupted. I believe, in my opinion, is that because the protesters in Miami, they don't have the years and years and years of going through repetitions of how this is done. They just don't. They haven't done it. Maybe all those protesters are down at Stop Cop City in Atlanta. Who knows, right? But the protests in Miami, they looked like amateur hour compared to our, paint suited up knuckleheads here in Seattle. Because, that was an effective, you put 5 people on a sleeping dragon, that's going to take a while to get out. And then they also brought vehicles. Miami, I don't believe any vehicles had been positioned in the streets. So, Miami got ahead of it. They were able to jump on top of that. The difference between chaos and order is a choice. Congress should choose order. Congress should make blocking traffic a felony nationwide. 100% agreed. 100% agreed. But you know why they won't? Because you got a bunch of people in the squad. One member here from some of our politicians here in Washington State. You're just like, if you had the delete button for those people, it would make, things would be better. You've got the squad in Congress and they're like, oh no, we're pro-Palestinian. We're pro-Palestinian. So yeah, I haven't covered much of the pro-Palestinian stuff lately. The whole Iran sending in or attempting to send in a bunch of drones. I haven't covered that because quite frankly and quite honestly, I don't want to give any more coverage to that kind of ridiculousness than they're already getting, right? This whole, from the river to the sea thing is just like, okay, so you want to get rid of Israel in its entirety. But you're upset with Israel for, going after a extremely violent Hamas that just did an invasion. You're upset about the whole thing is just whacked. But that's what's going on in Seattle. I did cover a couple of the pro-Palestine rallies at the beginning so that I could, have an idea. All right, what's going on? And it looked a lot like the Black Lives Matter rallies of 2020, with the exception, most of those rallies, the pro-Palestinian ones, they have not gone down the crazy train road of lighting entire cities on fire and doing all that stuff. They haven't done that for the vast majority. We haven't seen that. But I don't want to give any more coverage to those events. We've had them almost every weekend here in Seattle. I don't know how many we've had, but it's just dozens and dozens. I don't even talk about it because I don't want to give any more, coverage, because that's what they're looking for, to this issue, which is they want an immediate ceasefire. Why? Israel's doing work, and they are bombing the F out of Hamas. Or so we're told. Who knows, right? Who knows? But whole situation with people here in the United States. What I find really entertaining is that so many people within the Antifa community, with the mostly peaceful protesting community, oftentimes, they're LGBTQ, and that whole community wouldn't do very well in Gaza. And here they are holding up their stop, immediate ceasefire now. They're doing all that ridiculousness. And I'm like, how about you go to Gaza and do that sign there and tell everybody, who you affiliate with. See how that works out. Yeah, not well. I'm told that would not work out well. So you've got this whole contradiction of you're supporting who and what would they do to you over there? Yeah, interesting, right? Wouldn't turn out well. Would not turn out well. But they can virtue signal here in the United States. They can shut down freeways. And what do? We're going to have to get out our special squad. We don't want to break somebody's poor little wrist. They're all bundled up and they're, big, what is that, 6-inch PVC pipe? They got it duct taped and they're wearing their costumes. One of the pictures was the gal. I don't know if it's a gal or a guy or whatever. It looked like a girl, but you can't tell in Seattle. You don't really know what somebody is or what they want to identify as. She was lying next to the bigger individual, the one that's probably over 300. And they were just big smile on their face. We're just having a great time blocking traffic. Everybody's trying to get to the airport. Throw them in jail. Lock them up. Give them some time to sort things out. Think about it. But that's not going to happen because community like Seattle, community like Chicago, community like San Francisco, Portland, LA, any of these places, Oakland, Manhattan, they're not going to incarcerate anybody for expressing their First Amendment rights. Yeah, but they stopped traffic on a federal roadway. Therefore, make it a federal offense and throw them in federal prison. That's what I say we should do. All right, that's it for me on this one. All right, I'm going to do my outro here, guys, and gals, too. Can't be sexist. Talking about rabies. And I saw somebody shooting, what was it? It was a porcupine or raccoon that had rabies, and they just couldn't put it down. It was absolutely crazy. All right, let's do the outro here, and then I'll talk with you guys for a little bit here. We are going to go right to there, and we've got audio squared away. Thank you so much for joining this podcast. If you haven't already, love to have you subscribe. Hit the like button if you enjoy this content. Share with friends and family. That's the greatest way to get this channel out to the public. Again, thanks for being here, and I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now. All right, one and done. Sometimes you get lucky. It's better to be lucky than good. Is that what people say? All right, you guys have been chatting up a storm. Holy cow! I measure it by the. Yeah, somebody's saying it's a shame. Sherry L1 was saying it's a shame that these cities and states go down the drain. You know, I've kind of been thinking about that with Denver a lot lately. Colorado was kind of, you know, they were okay for a while. And then all of a sudden they started to I think they just really wanted that West Coast influence. And they got the bad part of the West Coast influence, right? And it's just like, oh man, Denver too? That sucks. That absolutely sucks. Yeah, you guys are Janet McDonald and TNT Cycles, PDX. Denver, late 70s, a girl could take a bus into town from Lowry Air Force Base in tech school nearly a year, walk anywhere safely. Yeah, you would not want to do that in Denver now. I mean, it's no. You wouldn't want to do that in certain parts of Seattle. You certainly wouldn't want to do that in Portland. I mean, that's just a hard no-go. It's just wild how things have changed so quickly. And yet the kids now, my son goes to Denver or has gone to Denver quite a bit just because he likes to hang out there. And he's like, Dad, it's not that bad. It's okay. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, you're not eyes wide open and you didn't see it before. So you're kind of used to dealing with it in Seattle, and he lives in Seattle. And, you know, it's one of those, okay, but it wasn't always like this. And if you don't have that perspective, like from the 1970s, it just, you know, you've got a wildly different perspective. And that's the difference between the rest of us folks. Most of us, a little bit older. I was born in the late 60s. I'm born in 68, but grew up in the 70s. I hung around Portland because my grandma would take me shopping there during the summer. I would ride a bus, or my parents would drop me off in Longview, Washington, and I'd hang out with my grandma and grandpa for a week. And my grandma would always take us shopping. My brother and I take us shopping in downtown Portland because downtown Longview didn't have a Macy's. They didn't have a Frederick and Nelson's. You know, didn't have those stores. I don't think Nordstrom was even around then. And so we'd go to downtown Portland, and I have great memories of downtown Portland. We had fun. I mean, it was one of those hanging out with my grandma, and she's just buying us whatever we wanted. You know what I mean? She's spoiling the grandchildren. And I don't remember any tents. It wasn't like that. In fact, to go shopping, we kind of dressed up. Do you remember that when you would go to like downtown, you'd go into town? I'm not saying I lived on a farm or anything, but if you went into downtown and you were going to do some shopping, you didn't wear grubby jeans and you didn't wear, you know, thong sandals. You just didn't. You didn't wear flip-flops, I guess they'd call them today. And so, you know, you dress up a little bit. Things were different. The world was different. And we've gone down this roadway of, just let it happen. You know, do whatever you want with drugs. Marry whomever you want. All of this stuff. And then you end up with these communities of homelessness, and you end up with people protesting because you've had, you know, you voted so many people into office that are just okay with all this ridiculousness. And so then you've got states like Florida and you got states like Texas that invariably are dropping the hammer on this kind of shenanigans, on this kind of ridiculousness. And I find it so fascinating because people from where I am in Seattle, they think of Texas as just being a bunch of far right extremists that, you know, want to outlaw everything and that just, you know, want to have everybody in church 24/7. And it's just not like that. It's not like that, right? It's reasonable to me. It's reasonable. But what is now reasonable to the left and to the far left is you might as well be, you know, a far, far right winger And, the goalposts and all of this has moved so much, and they've moved so much in a city like Seattle. Because I don't think back in the 70s, you wouldn't have had a protest. You would have if you would have been out on the streets, somebody would have got out of their truck and just beat the crap out of you. That's what you would have had happen back in the 70s and even into the 80s a little bit, right? Back when we're just starting to make the shift up to this whole progressive notion. And then Seattle and the West Coast got the California influence, and then everything just kind of went sideways. And now we're situated with, all right, this is what we got. This is where we sit. How do we fix it? If communities are willing to take a look and try and fix it. But so much of what's gone on, people have voted in because they're comfortable with it, and you get what you vote for. So keep voting blue in these big cities. You'll be fine. It'll be fine. You'll be fine. Everything will just work out magically, right? So if that's kind of the environment you want, and a lot of people don't want that, and we've had so many people on the Summit side here sell their homes. I'm moving to Texas. I'm moving to Idaho. I'm moving to Montana. I'm moving to Florida. I mean, very few people move in here unless they're specifically here in Seattle for a job, because it's so expensive, right? It's so expensive. Why would you move here unless you're a tech bro and have a job where, making $300,000 isn't crazy. And that's the only way you can afford housing here, because it's just ridiculously expensive. Let's scroll through here and see. Yeah, from the river to the sea. I find that one particularly irritating. Somebody, who was it? Was it Texas or maybe Florida? Was basically making that saying. They were outlawing it because it literally is anti-Semitic, right? Because from the river to the sea, you got the Jordan River, and I know you guys know this, out to the Mediterranean Sea, that basically eliminates all of Israel. So what happened to Israel? Well, you got rid of them entirely. Boom. So there was some state or some community that was literally making that, or was it Congress? I can't even remember. It was like, oh yeah, I know that saying. I've heard that saying so many times in protests and then on video. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's like, give it a rest, folks. Give it a rest. You're not having any impact. All these protests, you're not having any impact. Zero. What you're talking about is almost 7,000 miles away. They don't care what you're saying. But we're garnering support. No, you're not. You're not. Israel's just going to keep doing what they're doing. And I'm okay with that. That's where I sit. All right. I am going to go work on some real estate stuff. So thank you guys so much for being here. I will catch up with you in the next one. The next podcast will be Tuesday. Not the next podcast, but the next live stream. And if you want to join in the mornings, 9 o'clock my time, I'm typically on the live chat of the 9 a.m. premiere. So if you want to hang out there, that's another opportunity. Thanks all for being here. I'll catch up with you on the next live stream. Bye for now.